Let's talk about the filth that's starting to come out in the early days of the Diddy trial. This, of course, is P. Diddy. Surprise, surprise, he's a creep. Surprise, surprise, he's done horrible.
Sean Combs' carefully crafted redemption narrative is cracking wide open, and the fallout is far more damaging than any prison sentence he's facing. The public bought into the performance, the emotional courtroom remorse, the vows of sobriety, the image of a man transformed behind bars. But that illusion shattered the moment prison staff allegedly caught him brewing homemade alcohol using Fanta. Now, insiders from Fort Dix say even his unit transfer got mysteriously reversed, and no one's offering a clear explanation why. This doesn't look like a one-time slip. It feels like a recurring pattern. Meanwhile, his legal team is in damage control mode, reportedly trying to push back the June 30th, 2026 civil trial. That case, brought by Lionel Ripley, includes disturbing claims tied to her 26th birthday, allegations involving coercion, intoxication, physical harm, and waking up injured without consent. Financially, the pressure is suffocating. Estimates point to $50 million in potential penalties, more than 80 unresolved cases, an account his own lawyers describe as nearly depleted. Yet somehow, he recently managed to settle a
With a civil case, it's a much lower standard of a preponderance of the evidence, or in more layman's terms, more likely than not, the measurement we as attorneys typically use for that is 51%. And so for a civil case, you're just saying, hey, is there a 51% chance that Sean Combs allegedly committed these acts? If so, he would be liable. In the federal case, which was criminal, that was proof beyond a reasonable doubt, where he was found guilty of those two counts you mentioned earlier, and is serving a 50-month sentence in Fort Dix.
$3,000 legal expense tied to his son's separate assault issue. The sobriety narrative was a foundation holding his public image together, and now that foundation is collapsing. So what's left? Because the next revelation won't be about prison-brewed alcohol or resurfaced accusations. It's about the dates marked on a prison calendar, deadlines that threaten not just his wealth, but the final remnant of persona he spent decades building. The prison hooch scandal isn't just noise. It's the fracture line where the entire illusion begins to split, and the timing, far too precise to dismiss as coincidence. Sean Combs was supposed to embody the model inmate transformation, the man who submitted a detailed letter to a federal judge outlining redemption, sobriety, and self-reclamation. He claimed he was clean for the first time in over 2 decades, someone who had finally broken free from the grip of substance abuse. That was the narrative, carefully constructed, strategically reinforced. His team amplified it. His family echoed it, urging the public to show patience, to offer grace, to ignore what they framed as exaggerated whispers. Then came the ferment. Not just any makeshift drink. This was deliberate, methodical brewing, the kind that takes time. Sugar, fruit, concealment. A process that doesn't happen overnight. It requires planning, intent, and a willingness to defy rules. Traits that clash hard with the image of a man pleading for leniency. Reports from inside Federal Correctional Institution. Fort Dix suggest it didn't end with discovery. He was reportedly relocated because of it, then quietly moved back. No clarification. No paper trail explanation. That's not oversight, that's influence. And influence inside a federal facility always comes with a price. This is where the narrative starts to twist. The leak about the brewing surfaced the exact same week his legal team moved to postpone a critical civil trial, currently scheduled for June 30th, 2026. A case brought by Lionel.
Tick-tock, tick-tock. The clock is ticking on Diddy because on Friday he finds out what his sentence is going to be. But today, he found out what prosecutors would like that sentence to be, and it is vastly different from what his attorneys have suggested to the judge. Prosecutors want him to do 11 years, just over 11 years.
Ripley, centered on allegations tied to a 2016 incident involving coercion, intoxication, and physical harm. The overlap is hard to ignore. While his defense frames the case as opportunistic, Ripley's legal team is positioning it as accountability long overdue. Discovery has reportedly unearthed messages, surveillance clips, and hotel documentation pointing to her impaired condition the following morning. 2 sides, 2 completely different realities. But the numbers? Those are harder to spin. An estimated $50 million in penalties from the criminal side, over 80 civil cases still active, financial resources described, even by his own camp, as severely depleted. And yet, just weeks ago, a separate $53,000 legal obligation tied to his son Christian Combs was settled without hesitation, which raises a different kind of question. If the resources are drying up, who is still paying? And more importantly, who decides where the money flows when everything else is supposedly running out? Because at this stage, it's no longer just about allegations or image. It's about control. And whatever is holding things together right now doesn't look stable. The money trail is where the story enters its second phase, and it's far messier than the first. Behind the scenes, people familiar with the situation say Sean Combs' inner circle has been scrambling, reaching back into old networks and past alliances.
I think if I'm handicapping it, if somebody comes to me and says, Mark, what do you think about an appeal? It's not Sean Combs, it's somebody else. The judge found sentencing guidelines that were over 70, and the judge went under by 20. And then I'm asked, I went to trial, I lost on a couple of counts, and the judge went under what probation suggested the guidelines are. I would tell you that an appeal is incredibly, it's always a heavy lift. It just becomes a Herculean lift.
Names like TriStar Sports and Entertainment Group have reportedly come up in urgent requests for liquidity, cash needed to keep the legal machine running. But the answers haven't been warm. Accounts are reportedly restricted. Real estate is leveraged. The once dominant music empire, a shadow of its former self. On paper, it paints a picture of strain, yet the payouts keep happening. First, the $53,000 tied to his son.
There is a partial verdict in the Diddy case after 2 days. The jury has reached unanimous decisions on 4 of the 5 counts.
The problem is that 5th count means that we don't get to find out what the verdicts are on the other 4 because they are hung up on
son's legal situation. Before that, the benchmark shifting settlement with Cassie Ventura, reportedly around $30 million, reset expectations overnight. Now, attorneys from Los Angeles to New York City are recalculating, raising their demands and watching closely, because the real battle may not be happening in courtrooms at all. It's unfolding in spreadsheets, bank statements, and quiet negotiations. His team signals financial distress. His past, and traces of his present, suggest something else. That gap between narrative and reality is making accusers.
This is the flight where Diddy said to her,
Showed her
she
the video.
testified
Showed her the
that
freak-off video.
he showed her a video of a freak-off that she participated in and said, if you don't participate in another freak-off when we get to New York, I'm going to put this video out. I'm going to send it to your mother.
And that's coercion.
She testified
to
that.
If the jury
they believed her,
yeah,
that's coercion.
That's
they would have Cassie.
More aggressive, not less. Then there's a timeline shift. According to the Federal Bureau of Prisons, his projected release date now sits at April 25th, 2028. That's earlier than the previously listed June 4th date, which itself had already been adjusted once before. No press release, no detailed reasoning, just a silent update. In that system, changes like that rarely happen without cause, either behavior that earns internal credit or influence that operates quietly behind the scenes. Inside, there are reports he's been leading informal business sessions for other inmates. On the surface, it sounds constructive, almost commendable, but it also fits a familiar pattern. The same instinct that built his empire, leveraging knowledge, shaping value, turning opportunity into advantage, is still at work. The environment has changed, the scale has shrunk, but the underlying drive hasn't disappeared. The hustle didn't end. The silence surrounding the release date speaks louder than any official statement ever.